I wanted to talk about this, the rant story. I'm Japanese who grew up poor and homeless in Japan. This is from yesterday. Sorry for the upcoming trauma dump, but I just really need to get this off my chest. I'm half Filipino, half Japanese. I was born and raised in Japan to low middle class family. My dad was an office worker, and my mom was a bar singer who migrated to Japan as a japayuki, a slang for Filipino entertainers who moved to Japan during the 80s economic bubble. This is a sad story, but, you know, I think it's important to address it. There were some misconceptions, but it's also very informative. My mom became the breadwinner. When my dad died suddenly of a heart attack, my mom became the breadwinner out of the blue. At the time of his death, my mom was pregnant and wasn't working. My parents were married, but my mother wasn't a Japanese citizen yet and was only a permanent resident status. She couldn't find a job because she was pregnant. Companies often don't hire women for this reason, and also hates giving out pregnancy compensation. And because she was Filipino, companies often do not employ immigrants in high-earning positions. I was working part-time jobs while in school to help my mom. We had to move out eventually out of the apartment because we didn't want to waste our savings on the rent. We were basically homeless and was jumping to one friend relative to another as temporary shelter and staying in cheap hotels or short-term rentals. This is something that I also talked about in Japan when I was on the Japanese trip as well, called manga cafes, as Connor brought up. Sometimes the homelessness in Japan is invisible, and by that I mean they are not on the street, but they get to find like cheap accommodations. And stay in manga cafes and stuff like that. There was even one night me and my little brother had to stay in a CD Love hotel because my mom had an interview the next day in a hotel nearby and she needed to look fresh and presentable in the morning. She didn't get the job. There was one point where we had no money. My mom was still too prideful to panhandle, and even if she would, she'd get arrested immediately anyway. We resorted to borrowing money from relatives, friends, ex-coworkers just so we can stay in a warm room for the night. We couldn't rent cheap apartment rooms because we would need shikikin, safety deposit, and reikin. I don't know how to explain this, but it's like a tip to the landlord. What the fuck? You have to tip the landlord? Reikin is also known as key money. Yo, Japan is on some different shit. Also, renewal association fees, and we simply didn't have enough money for those. My grand aunt and granduncle on my father's side, who lived in Sendai, quite far from Tokyo, suddenly contacted us on Facebook and luckily invited us to stay at their house. It was a small townhouse, so we felt bad staying there. They were quite old, 85 to 89 years old at the time, and we just didn't want to bother them, so we planned on moving out as soon as we can. My mom and I had a harder time looking for jobs, so we eventually moved to Chiba, outskirts of Tokyo, also because my mom wanted me to go to a university in Tokyo so I could live in a free dorm that comes from a scholarship foundation. That way, we wouldn't be jumping from one shelter to another. I only studied for 1 year in Tokyo, then moved to the Philippines to finish my university studies, then to the UK, where my mom got employed as a nurse because I just wasn't able to keep up with the studies while working, and I also didn't want my mom to work herself to death just so she could pay my tuition. For many years until my high school graduation, we were homeless and under the poverty line. Words you don't often see associated with Japan. On the outside, you wouldn't be able to tell we were poor and homeless. We still dressed presentable when we go outside, and Hasan was right about the clean public washrooms that we took advantage of. We would have government aid, but because my mom was not a citizen, we received a very small amount from a nonprofit organization. There were times when the Tokyo Tocho, the local government unit of Tokyo, gave us hotel rooms to stay in, especially during cold months. But they are, of course, temporary. We couldn't even work on our citizenship naturalization requirements because she no longer can. She would need a decent job and a permanent address. My mom, even though she was well-educated, had a degree in nursing, could speak fluent English, Tagalog, and Hokkien, Chinese dialect, and Japanese, couldn't get a decent job because she was an immigrant, a woman, and a single mom. She worked 2 jobs as a factory worker and hotel housekeeping until we moved out of the country. Just because it looks like everything in Japan works doesn't mean the people there aren't tired. Did I also mention that my dad died because of overworking? My dad loved this job only because Japan makes you believe that your worth is based on your work. If he wasn't overworking, he was seen as lazy and worthless. The only time I could see him was at night when he gets home at 10 p.m., even though his work allows him to leave at 6 p.m. He would always bring me chocolates from Famimart Chicken as compensation because he barely had time to spend with me. Anyway, I'm very, very sorry for the lengthy trauma dump. I was kind of upset when Hasan picked out my chat message in history while chat was calling me an American defending America copium just because I pointed out the mistakes in Hasan's rose-colored view of Japan and criticized his viewpoints, and I get dogpiled by chat in return. I love this community, so being ridiculed by them is hurtful, honestly. So one of the misconceptions is that I don't think that Japan is free of any sort of issues. Who dogpiled them? People do it all the time in chat, which is why we yell at chatters who do it all the time. Okay? Hasan and his friends' perspective are all from a privileged Western lens. He's only been in the tourist parts of Tokyo, and he still talked over my points with overconfidence, assuming that I didn't know what I was talking about. I know Japanese statistics online are wrong. I've literally seen local news in Osaka and volunteers who handed out a total of 20,000 sleeping bags to the homeless, and I've personally stayed for a short time in a homeless park. I've always been a big fan of Hasan, and I love his content, but I'll have to take a break from watching him now. Again, sorry for the rant. Just wanted to say thank you for the kind messages, but also kind of I ruined your day. I'm listening. I'm also going to maybe stop replying to the comments because now it's making me anxious. Thank you for listening to my story. Oi, bruv, country in Swagapino land, Hasan. So, and her family's doing well. I feel like you kind of addressed this in the last podcast episode. I did. And I have talked about it a lot because when I'm talking about the homelessness issue in and of itself in Japan, it is a comparison to the lack of amenities afforded to homeless people in the United States of America. Now, that doesn't mean that like Japanese homelessness is not like a legitimate issue, a legitimate crisis. I even saw the Political Compass page on IG shitting on you for it. What? Why do you follow the Political Compass page on Instagram? Anyway. I remember you saying several times during the Japan trip that Japan was not perfect and they do have homelessness. It's just hidden like you said. No, I remember the argument that we had, which was this person saying that homelessness in Japan, numbers wise, was so much more severe. And I said the official numbers are 3,800 in comparison to the United States' numbers. Even if they are undercounting by 10x in comparison to the U.S. population, like it's still dramatically lower, right? That's all I was saying, and I think that because it's a traumatic experience, this person's like lived experience is very traumatic, and compiled with the chat dogpiling that's occurring, it made it seem like I was undermining their position. I mean, they're definitely undercounting. Worse, he's on the Hasan Piker subreddit. Dude, what do you mean? This is like informative as fuck. What are you talking about? But the net percentage matters. Population of U.S. versus Japan. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Per capita. Per capita homelessness is still dramatically higher in the United States of America in comparison to somewhere like Japan. It's not. This doesn't mean that like Japanese people do not have a homelessness problem. This video is not available anymore. What the fuck? But the reason why I wanted to, they were arguing stats were deceptive. You were arguing that about the difference regardless of the deception. Exactly. Everyone needs to fucking calm down. Okay? The reason why I read this is because it's very informative. Okay? There were even comments in Japanese. No idea what happened there. Also, they still talk about having access to showers and help, which a lot of people don't have. Being homeless in other countries still doesn't mean is good in Japan as a homeless person. Yes. Okay. That's the reason why I read this. Do you have anything to say to the chatter in particular? I mean, I bet a couple nice words would make them feel better. I mean, I hope they're still watching. I hope they didn't stop watching because of that. And I'm sorry that it came across like I was undermining your perspective. I was not. Yeah. I wasn't trying to, but I apologize. Refresh video is still up. It wasn't up. Bro, this says the video isn't available anymore. Why do you guys keep sending me this fucking video? Erase the dashes in the URL. Oh shit. Nope. It's a huge difference being a tourist for several days in Tokyo from actually living, working in Japan for a longer time. Yes. Not only that, but also I mean, Japan also has like genuine problems with xenophobia, genuine problems with like undermining sexual harassment. In Japan, as I talked about in the podcast, that it is a hyper-capitalist dystopia in many respects. It's just that in comparison to the United States of America, where people are overworked at higher levels than
this.
Overworked at higher levels than motherfucking Japan and have a higher rate of suicide than motherfucking Japan. It's weird to see it. It's weird to see how things work. Do you understand?
You might hardly see homeless people rising in Tokyo, but it's been more and more obvious for the people supporting those in need. This organization, Tenohashi, regularly provide food, necessities, and consulting service for the people in poverty. And they've seen such a big increase of the number, and also demographic change. They've got way more young people and women coming there.
昔はそんなね、若者もまずいなかった。若ければなんか仕事があったわけですよね。で今は、それがどんどんね、なくなっていって、特にコロナになってね、非正規の仕事がバンバン切られましたから、簡単なスクリーニングテストやらせてもらったらば、150人中約 40% に精神疾患の疑いがあると。そういう結果が出てますので、家を一回得たとしても、そこで一人になっちゃうわけですよね。困窮して家を失ってホームレスになっちゃうと。そういったことは非常に多いですね。それは本人の責任。
Look, Japan has a pretty high suicide rate, which can be attributed to their intense working culture. America has a worse work culture in comparison to Japan. America has a higher suicide rate per capita, a higher number of suicides per capita in comparison to Japan. The difference with suicides is just 1 point, marginal, fair. But understand, when I'm making a comparison between Japan and America, this comparison revolves around how shitty America is, not necessarily how great Japan is. We went over this 2 days ago. People that say this are operating off of old stereotypes.
というよりはね、やっぱり福祉の貧困、医療であるとかにうまく乗れないと生活困窮してで路上生活になってしまうって人は非常に多くて、申請に行くと冷たい態度取られてね、心の傷を深めると、そういったケースはいっぱいあります。
やる気よりもっとすごい力、なんか起き上がれないんですよね。なんか何にもできなくなる。
How can you know that Japan is underreporting at a higher, lower rate than the U.S. is? Doesn't that have to be considered? I mean, Japan is... here's the reality. Japan is underreporting their homelessness rates, but so is America, which is why I made the original point that, like, no matter how much Japan is underreporting their homelessness rates, even if it's, like, literally 10 times more, America still has a dramatically larger homelessness problem, okay? That was my point. The United States also has invisible homelessness in the same way that the chatter described her own perspective. This is something I've talked about a lot. And if you have visible homelessness, that means you have so much more invisible homelessness. The only difference is, from what I understand, given the, I guess, Japanese proclivity towards like wanting to... The stages of homelessness is something I've discussed many, many times. When I originally said it's crazy how low the percentage of homelessness is, okay, in Japan in comparison to the United States of America, when I talked about that, I was looking for how that works. What's invisible homelessness? Homelessness isn't just about the people that you see on the streets that have tattered clothing and sometimes are like visibly in a state of disarray. a lot of people that you encounter on a day-to-day basis, maybe in the service sector, maybe in general, could potentially be homeless, living out of their cars or couch surfing. It usually starts with couch surfing. Well, it ultimately starts with being priced out of the housing market. In Japan, it seems like there are, due to some social amenities like public bathrooms and whatnot, there are better opportunities to exist as like a invisible homeless person. This doesn't change the problem, obviously, because I've talked about it. Like, there is a housing issue in Japan too. Here's a data graph: annual working hours versus GDP per capita. United States' annual working hours is at almost 1,800. Japan's is lower, but still very high. There are plenty of houses in Japan outside of Tokyo. Issue is that most of the jobs are in Tokyo. Yes. There is always going to be a housing problem anywhere, as this chatter is correctly pointing out. Anywhere houses are considered an investment, you are always going to have a housing problem. Americans work longest hours among industrialized countries. Japanese is the second longest. Europeans work less time but register faster productivity gains. In the new ILO, International Labor Organization statistical volume, highlights labor trends worldwide. This is from 1999. It's only gotten worse. That's why this is more significant. I mean, it stayed around the same. It says 1,800. Oh. How? You work 7 days a week or what? What do you mean? I work 7 days a week. Chat, I clocked. How many thousands of hours did I clock? I mean, right now, let's see. Year over year, you have seen how many hours I'm live. I usually average around 200 hours on camera. Oh, work, Omegalol. I know. It's stupid. I know. I'm so stupid for even mentioning that as work. It's not. I'm a bad person. Yeah, 2,400 hours is my yearly. 2,400 hours is how many hours I am on camera usually on average. That's, of course, without counting the podcast and other shit that I do. But hey, listen. On that note, you've been crazy since being back from Japan. So anyway, the real work is your mods providing videos for you to react to and the research, etc. that they do. Bro, you know you still get banned even if you fucking glaze them, right? What? So what mods? You mean chat? I've never been timed out. Here, take a week off then, bitch. What mods? What videos? Bro is confused. Yeah, my mods are like, what are you talking about? Anyway. Means videos like this. Is this Steven Seagal?
Yeah.
Did he get zapped too? He fell down like a fucking log, dude. Hit his fucking head and everything. Also, pointing out that Japan has a high suicide rate due to overworking isn't a stereotype. It's a significant problem in the U.S. and many hyper-capitalist nations. True, that's fair. No, I just think, I think that assuming that Japan has a higher rate of suicide and more and Japanese people are more overworked than American people on average is the stereotype. Anyway, let's continue watching this.
なんか日本の方だとちょっと変な目で見てきますよね。
The average age of homeless people hit a record 63.6 years
生活保護
old.
支援を受けてるのは200万人ぐらいですかね。2、3倍の人が生活保護より以下の水準でね、生きてると。日本人のね、メンタリティ、お上の世話にはなりたくないというのと、あと生活保護を受けるような人間はダメなやつだというね、そういった偏見が日本中にあって、生活保護を受けなければ生きていけない人たちの中にもそれが刻み込まれていると。その人が保護を受けてもやっぱり自分に対してね、自分のことをダメ出しをするわけですよね。そういうね、メンタリティ。
That's wild. Hiroyuki has been staying in internet cafes while living from day to day. He refuses to seek help from his family, social workers, or anyone.
なんか誰にも社会にも負担になりたくはないっていうか、今のこういった状況。
Bro, I feel like Japanese people have also distorted themselves to be the perfect little warriors for capitalism, the capitalist project too. Like that culture of shame can cause it to operate, but it also has like this kind of impact too, and also leads to the inevitable incredibly high. Yeah, Connor explained the internet cafe thing. Yeah, we talked about it.
It 自分のせいでもありますし、すごい恥ずかしいなっていうふうに感じてしまうんですよね。だからこう助けを受ける資格がないかなっていうか、それとやっぱ家族に今どこにいてどういう状況かとか知られたくない。
By the way, everything that he's talking about and his living conditions, from the manga cafes that he can exist in where there's like internet and shelter for like super cheap pricing, and also the food that is also super cheap, and the fact that he can go to like public restrooms, be able to clean himself, these are all still incredibly fucked up. But this is all part of the reason why homelessness can be so invisible in a place like Japan. No such thing obviously exists in the United States of America. Another comparison I'm making. This does not mean that it's good. I want to stress this point, as I have time and time again, but I probably should stress it more frequently. Americans have no shame. No, America is a hyper-individualistic culture. Your bar guy from the last video in Japan uploaded a new reel in you in the last bar. Tanahashi has been doing outreach, but only few accept help.
なんであんたその頑張るんですかと聞くんですけどね。やっぱりこう、よくあるのは親兄弟に知られたくない。もうね、非常にね、こう嫌な体験になっている。虐待を受けてた人もいるし、住民票とか設定しちゃうと、借金が追いかけてくるとか、怖いやつが追いかけてくるってこともあるでしょうし、一番最後はもう体壊してね、体が言うこと聞かなくなった時に、助けてと言ってもらう。それまではね、もう路上で頑張るんだってね、ことを言ってる方は結構いて。
In these decades, more and more people moving into Tokyo hoping that they'll get greater job prospects and higher pay, which is often the case actually. And I think this applies to pretty much any of the big cities. But this overconcentration
Wait.
actually, and I think this applies
The average monthly income in Tokyo, about
pretty much
$2,780.
any of the big cities. But this over-concentration in Tokyo caused higher rent and made it even harder for people in poverty to find a place to live. Even though the government trying to disperse it, not many people willing to take it. Because again, there are not enough job opportunities in the countryside. While Tokyo at least has more jobs, housing requirements are still too high.
路上生活の方が
Bro, this is literally, yo, this is straight up. That's low compared to like New York City. Yeah, that is insanely low for a big city, dude. What the fuck? This is Tokyo, chat. This is the New York. It's like San Francisco. Can you imagine living on fucking, holy shit. It's also, they don't work 40-hour work weeks. Watch this video very critical as this guy talked about black people being naturally violent and stuff like that. Jesus Christ, what? Everybody knows about this guy already? What the fuck? The Japan reporter? What the fuck? I put you in the chart with other countries? What do you mean? We already did this. No, wrong guy, but he also makes similar content. Zoom out. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. Because that's a lie. You didn't put my hour. Bro, I'd be up here, dude. I'd be like, I'm over here working Indonesian hours, you motherfucker, and you put me down here. On this chart, I'm doing China hours. What the fuck? You put me down here. You asshole.
家を構えるというのは不可能ですよね。うん。仕事があってまず正社員になれないですよね。家がないと。じゃあアルバイト日雇いの仕事ね。で1日まあ8,000円とかもらう月収10万ですよね。それで貯金できるかというとまず厳しいですよね。
Luckily,
does Japan have a drug problem like how some states in the U.S. has? I think that puts a critical role in homeless situations. No, it doesn't, dude. No. Great example. No, it doesn't have like the same drug problems that America has. But also, what the fuck do you mean? Some states in America have drug problems. What are you talking about? The Apple? I'm willing to bet this motherfucker's not talking about the Appalachian Mountains. Okay. You know what he means when he says some states. He's talking about like. Anyway, listen, chatter. I'm going to clue you in on something. Drugs come after. Okay? In most cases, it's not the drugs that cause homelessness. Drugs come after. Whether it's a black market way to make money on the side so you can like ensure survival, or whether it is so that you can run the top of the hour ad break and avoid the top of the hour ad break by subscribing for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime, even though it came at $7.22 because I forgot to run it again. I'm on my 8 hours. I've gone past my 8 hours today, so you know I'm a little. Say black market is a racist term. Why are people so funny? What's going on? Oh, brother. Everybody loves making these jokes. Anyway, Angroro, thank you for the 5 get the subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Yakuza should have kept you in Japan. It would have been sick if I did. Anyway. Thought for today, you thought that dumbass shadow was funny? No, I was being sarcastic. Listen. What I was saying, I've actually forgotten what I was saying. Guyana Grown, thank you for the 5, get the subs.
Tokyo has many internet cafes as alternative housing for people like Hiroyuki, and some organizations provide you with housing support like a share house that you can use for free a few months. But still, housing support is not nearly enough.
手の足だけで今22部屋確保してて、家がない人にね、希望者にはね、提供してます。そこから生活保護を申請し、で、アパート一人暮らしの練習をして、自分のアパートを借りてそちらにね、ずっと住み続けると。それをやると、もう大体ね、9割ぐらいの人はね、うまくいきますよ。そのシェルター。
You really think people get homeless first and then find drugs? I mean, in many instances, first of all, drugs are a permanent part of everyone's fucking lives. Let's be real. We're in America. It's just like when rich people do it, you don't really consider it that in the same way because like rich people can go to rehab easily. Rich people don't get fucking criminalized for their drug usage. They get it over the counter. They're not doing fucking heroin on the streets. Okay, so that's number one. It's America. Everyone's on fucking drugs. But what I'm talking about is, in many instances, homelessness does not happen because someone has a fucking drug addiction. Please, this is a false narrative. Homelessness happens first and foremost, primarily, and in the overwhelming majority of cases, due to being priced out of the housing market. Okay? I was about to flame you, son. You really think people get homeless first and then find drugs? I guess there's a lot of both, but I guess I've seen the opposite mostly. Yes, you're looking at fucking anecdotes. There is evidence on this. Like you're looking at what you see on the streets. And what you see is like literally a person who has been homeless for many, many years at this point, way past the point of like pretty much no return. Okay? And you're thinking like, oh, this is how every homeless person is. That's why I said for as many visible homeless people as there are many, many more invisible homeless people. Okay? Domestic violence is a leading cause of homelessness in women. Yeah. Mental illness is a problem too, but it's only exacerbated. Yeah. According to SAMHSA, 38% of homeless people abused alcohol, while 26% abused other drugs. From 2017, drug abusers are a minority of the homeless. And those people oftentimes, I mean, here, yeah, there you go. Homelessness, I've covered this before. Homelessness in California, cause and policy considerations. California's homelessness crisis is associated with high housing costs, inadequate shelter spaces, deinstitutionalization, and changes in the criminal justice system. That's it. That's what it is. They do end up becoming chronically homeless, okay? Like I said, like I call it tier 3 homelessness, where they do end up suffering from drug addiction and mental health problems, but that literally comes from being from self-medicating for many, many years, being homeless many, many years, because a lack of shelter is something that, a lack of shelter is such a basic part of existence. Like even fucking animals need to sleep in a cave. You know what I mean? Even animals out in the fucking wild need a goddamn roof over their heads. And you're over here looking at human beings who have none of that for many fucking years, and they lose their minds as a consequence of that. Okay? That's why a lot of the most visible aspects of homeless people, the ones that like get in your way, I guess, or the ones that are like fucking walking around in the middle of the street, pushing a cart, those guys are at the final stage of homelessness. And if there is no way for a recovery, if there's no way to help the people in the tier 1 level of homelessness, oftentimes that's where you get to the end stage. Years and years of sexual trauma, abuse out in the streets, violence, robberies committed, property theft. You start selling drugs. Like there was a homeless encampment outside of my house, in another house that I lived in, where, remember, they also, like someone shat in a fucking blanket basically and left it outside of, left it on the sidewalk. There were multiple instances of fire bombings. Multiple instances of fire bombings. Another house clipped. Yeah. Yeah. Of the encampment? Yes, because they were selling drugs. For a lot of people, they're doing whatever they can to survive. And what they do in a lot of instances is just like either sell drugs or steal bikes and shit like that. But when drugs are involved, there's also constant fucking fighting amongst other homeless encampments or fighting within the homeless encampment. Like one guy gets kicked out, comes back with a fucking, it was probably the cops. No, man, it wasn't the fucking cops. Tone is, I don't know. This is not how you usually talk about this. What? What do you mean? What tone? Yeah. Also, it's laughable to think that cops need to firebomb a homeless encampment when they can just beat the shit out of homeless people, and they do regularly, and arrest them regularly. So the point is, when you're at that, you should be crying, bro. What does that take? What? I don't know. Listen, the point is, when it gets to that point, like what I'm trying to say is, when it gets to that point, that's what you see. That's a devastating situation. Of course, people that have been homeless for that long are going to have a litany of mental health complications. My take was based on anecdote. That's all I got in the circumstance. Yes. Yeah, substance abuse and homelessness. And this is from the fucking VA. Drug abuse comes after you're homeless. It's a way to self-medicate, and it's a way to like try to make money. Okay?
運用してるんですけども、いかんせんもう22部屋全然足りなくて、一民間 NPO がね、できることはごく限られているので、本当に歯がゆいんですけども、結局こう、蛇口からジャージャー水が漏れてるのに、ね、我々ちっちゃなね、コップですくってるだけなんですよ。だから漏れる水をね、ちゃんとこう、止めないといけないと。
Anyway, so that was my perspective on it. What? This is that guy's video when he was where he was racist. Y'all didn't believe me. I don't care. I've been getting a lot of clips on TikTok about you debating Larry on homelessness. Comments are pretty positive too. Yeah, I've seen it. One of the funniest things is when people who don't know who I am, when people who don't know who I am turn around and fucking and say, "Oh, extremely rare Hasanabi W." I'm like, bro, like you just, I can't believe you just fucking said extremely rare Hasanabi W under a video of me literally debating on television a thing that I talk about all the time. Like, if that's a rare W, then, you know, you should probably watch a bit more of the stream. That's always what motherfuckers say. They're like, or they'll try to cope with it by saying, "Oh, this is before he what is this? Oh, dude, this is before fucking this is before Hasan got rich and bought a house. If he has a mansion, he has a mansion. Why doesn't he fucking house the homeless?" Like, yeah, dude, one homeless person that I'm gonna house is gonna fucking really fix the problem. Anyway. You replied to one saying this? Yeah, I did. I replied to an account. I'm tired, chat. I'm gonna end it here. I'm really tired. I'm quiet quitting. Yeah, even if I saw a comment where they said they used to like you before you went too far left. Yeah, I saw that comment too. You're talking about me advocating for trans issues, right? Oh, also Friday, here's an update. Friday, I am going to, alongside XQ Cow and Amaranth, go on a drip stream once again where we will hopefully, Amaranth will pick out hopefully clothes for me and XQ Cow for the Streamer Awards. That's right. That's a WS stream right there. Drip or Drown stream. Yeah. Friday, XQ Cow is going to be hanging out with an anti-white racist. Also, I am working on setting up potentially a post-streamer award stream with two of the hosts, Beauty Cinderella, who is also a co-host of mine on the Fear End podcast, and 100 Thieves Valkyrie. So yeah. I met Lud yesterday, Law. I'm sorry that happened to you. Yes, and Will Neff and Austin Show on the podcast too. Anyway, guys, love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow after leftovers. Leftovers tomorrow. Peace.